Naka-overwhelm a lot of times. I myself, I just joined RLC Residences last year, and there are a lot of terms that when I joined did not make sense to me. So we're gonna try to help you define these terms, differentiate between RFO and pre-selling, and hopefully help you arrive at your decision on what kind of property you want to invest in. Also, we'll try to address your budget concerns and timing. But before I go ahead, so buying property is a lifelong commitment. It can go all the way until you're all into your retirement. And it all starts by asking one question. I'm interested in buying a property. I'd like to know more about it. When we buy something, we always try to know more about it. If you buy shoes, you want to fit it, you want to buy a gadget, you want to check the specifications. For property, same thing, right? So you need to go and know about the property that you're buying. The goal is, before you make the decision to buy, alam nyo lahat ng kailangan nyong malaman so you can make the right decision, right? Because it's not a small investment to make. And owning a home is a dream of every Filipino. So we want to make an informed decision as much as possible. So, what does pre-selling mean? Pre-selling projects, newly launched projects but not yet developed. Essentially, they are only about to start constructing the project, or they're in the process of constructing the project, right? So that's what pre-sellings are already. So, first of all, every time we buy anything, especially property, there's always the first question that's asked: how much will it cost, right? So, for whether you're a first-time buyer or you're a seasoned investor, you're always going to have a budget that you can work with. As much as you want to buy the biggest houses and condos, we all have a budget that we can work with, right? So, let's run through the basic questions on how we can generally differentiate a pre-selling property from an RFO property, so you can get one that fits your finances better. So, if you were to look at a timeline from the time the project is launched to the time that the project has been completed from a construction standpoint at ito turnover na, the pre-selling period is from the time that it's launched right before the turnover. Once the building is completed, that's when it becomes ready for occupancy, or RFO. From a price or value standpoint, the value of a property is significantly lower just as you launch it. Kasi ginagawa pa lang eh. But the value of the property appreciates year on year as you go up. And once the building is completed and it's ready for turnover and occupancy, then nag-appreciate na yung value ng property. And that's one of the great things about real estate. It's one of the few items you can buy where the value appreciates as opposed to, for example, electronics or vehicles na pagkabili mo, it depreciates in value. Real estate always appreciates, and that's generally how it goes. So pre-selling, the price or the value is generally lower versus RFOs simply because the building has been constructed over a period of time. As an example, we launched our Sync project. It's a 4-tower project back in 2019. We launched our first tower, the S Tower, in 2019, and we launched the second tower, Y Tower, in 2021. So in the span of 2 years, the property value of Sync has appreciated by 14%. So kung yung condo mong binili is worth 100 pesos at the start, it's already worth 114 pesos right now. So that's the advantage of pre-selling. You can buy it at a relatively low price, and then as time goes and as the project is constructed, the value appreciates better than any other instrument that you would have out there. One other difference between RFO and pre-selling are the payment terms. Generally speaking, for pre-selling, mas flexible at mas mahaba yung payment terms versus RFO. For pre-selling, most developers offer terms from 48 months all the way to 72 months, or balita ko nga lately, even longer, 78 months sometimes. So a certain portion of the price, you will have anywhere from 5 to sometimes 7 years to pay off a portion of that one. Because from the developer's perspective, ginagawa ko pa lang yung building eh. So while it's going to take me 5 to 7 years to build the building, you're going to have about 5 to 7 years to complete the payment for a certain portion of the down payment. For RFO, most developers also offer flexible payment terms, pero mas maikli. At most, it's a range of 12 to 36 months. So that's one big difference. If your payment terms are a lot longer at pre-selling versus RFO, and it's a difference of 3 to 4 years from a payment term perspective. That we don't normally give after the launch period, which is about 2 to 3 months. So if you want to be able to maximize, your investment, pre-selling is a great way to get really good discounts for your property purchase. For RFO, there are also discounts, but a lot of them are limited to events such as this. So for those who are keen to explore RFO, typically developers give event-based discounts. RLC Residences has a special event discount for those exploring to buy an RFO property. So you can check our booth there. The other advantage of RFO is if you want to move in and use the property, you can do it already, right? Now, one of the things that you also need to consider is for pre-selling, you get it at a relatively lower value because it appreciates over time, right? The construction period takes anywhere from 4 years to 7 years. And one of the risks that you take is there may be a chance sometimes that the construction can get delayed. In full transparency, in the pandemic, because there were a lot of lockdowns, ang daming developers who had to pause construction because either it was a lockdown or there weren't enough construction workers. So there are some risks inherent to going with pre-selling. So that's a decision you need to make. If you need to use the property today, go for an RFO. If you're willing to wait for a number of years, you don't need it yet, kunyari, ibibigay nyo sa anak nyo, papasok pa lang ng college yung anak nyo, and you want to give it 4 years later, 5 years later, then you can go for pre-selling. But be aware that there is always a risk of delays, which is why we also always advise you go with big trusted developers because these developers have the resources. Despite things that happen, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang construction. So be aware of that. So as mentioned, for RFO, you can move in almost immediately. For RLC Residences, we have a lot of available RFO projects depending on what your needs are. So for those looking for properties, for example, in BGC, we have the Tryon Towers in Bonifacio Global City. For those looking for an RFO property along Rojas Boulevard, we have Radiance Manila Bay. Magnolia Residences is in New Manila, Quezon City. Access Residences at Pioneer and Chimes Green Hills at Annapolis, San Juan. One of the advantages you get from working and exploring an RFO property with RLC Residences, a lot of our residences are mixed use or mixed development. So for example, Magnolia is right next to Robinson's Magnolia Mall. So you get a lot of benefits by having a mall right next to the property for that. So lots of options available for RFO from a location standpoint. Now, if you think about it, one of the things you should also be asking yourself is, when I buy a property, whether pre-selling or RFO, what options are available, right? You've pinned down your budget, you know now what payment terms you can afford, but what are the other factors you can look at when you think of buying, whether pre-selling or RFO? First of all is location, right? Sometimes a lot of people overlook it, but you have to be very clear on what location you want to go into. For pre-selling, it's a little bit tricky at times because if the building will be finished 4, 5, 7 years later, you need to anticipate, well, will that location be something that will be important for me 4, 5, 7 years later? So location, very, very important, whether pre-selling or RFO. RLC Residences, for example, has properties all over Metro Manila, in Cebu, and soon in Pampanga near Clark. So always keep in mind and ask yourself, what's the location that I'm looking for? Lifestyle. Depende sa stage nyo ng buhay, sinong gagamit, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have when you buy a condo? Do you want to be in the middle of the city where the action is? Look for a property that's in the CBD of a city. Do you want something that's a little bit laid back? You can also look for options there. So for those looking, for example, for a laid back lifestyle, RLC Residences offers two options. We have one in Woodsville Crest in Parañaque and Sierra Valley Gardens in Rizal. So it also depends on what kind of lifestyle you want to live when you want to choose a condo. Next is, it sounds silly, but the view also is something you should always consider. You're buying a condo, which means you're going to live above ground. So when you live above ground, ano bang makikita mo sa araw-araw na nagigising ka? Right? To a lot of people, the view is very important. So choose a location that offers a great view if a view is something that's important to you. So for example, for RLC Residences, we offer our Amisa Private Residences in Cebu, which has an incomparable view of Punta Engaño in Mactan, Cebu, a 360 view of the bay. So if this is important for you, consider it. To a lot of people, they don't mind if they look out the window and they just see the next tower. But for a lot of other people, it's important to look at what they'll see every day when they look out the window. For the unit, well, whether pre-selling or RFO, what do you want? Do you want a studio unit, a one-bedroom, a two-bedroom, a penthouse? If it's pre-selling, you have a lot more flexibility to choose your floor, your preferred view, even the unit number or letter that you want. For those that believe that number 8 is a lucky number, you can actually look for a unit with an 8 in your unit, and if you're willing to pay extra for that one. For pre-selling, it gives you a lot more flexibility. Some of our buyers want to get combined units. They want to buy a studio and a one-bedroom, combine it, so it's a bigger unit. So most developers offer pre-selected unit combinations for that. For RFO, it's not so customizable kasi nagawa na yung building eh, right? So you're limited a lot more if you want to customize it. So one thing to consider, if you're okay with the standard cuts offered by the developer, then go for an RFO. If you want to customize it a little bit, pre-selling might be better for you. Elevated lifestyle spaces. Every time we introduce a new tower, we try to upgrade the facilities, the amenities, not just within the unit but also outside. So for example, for our third tower in Sync, we offer work-from-home nooks, advanced smart home features. It's fiber-ready, and there are upgrades we've provided to the kitchen and toilet and bath. Some of them are not available in Tower 1 just because Tower 1 was launched 3-4 years ago. So something to consider as you look at RFO and pre-selling. We've also upgraded deliverables. So a lot of times, when it's a multi-tower project, the developer will upgrade the deliverables even in the amenities. So sometimes Tower 1 will have a smaller pool, but Tower 2 and 3 will have a bigger pool and other upgraded amenities. So something to consider as you explore between RFO and pre-selling, the deliverables get upgraded as we introduce more towers. Advanced unit and residential features. As I mentioned earlier, for pre-selling, if you get recently launched towers versus previous ones, you may get advanced features. And as I mentioned, smart home features are upgraded as we go along for each tower. For RFO, yes, you can still upgrade the unit amenities, pero it takes a little bit more effort kasi again, nagawa na yung building. Now, before I close off, some tips that we can offer as you search for your home, or what as we call it, home investment hacks. Research, research, research. Don't rush into buying property. The biggest mistake you can make is for someone to force you to buy property na hindi pa kayo sure na yun yung gusto nyo, kailangan nyo, at kaya nyo. So do your research. Ask friends who have invested in real estate. If you don't know anyone close who has invested in real estate, then find a real estate seller that you can trust because they will be your partner as you buy your new home. For those who are interested to explore RLC Residences, who's from RLC Residences? Raise your hands. Look for an RLC Residences seller and we'll be more than happy to help you. So do your research. Make that informed decision. Get the opinions of people you respect, admire, not just Heart, although she's someone I respect and admire a lot, but talk to people you trust. Reach out to them and ask for their opinion. A lot of factors go into buying a home, so ask them about it. And lastly, location potential. I mentioned earlier that location is a very important factor when you choose it. But nowadays, a lot of projects are located in areas that we call estates, where the development potential is very high. So for example, for RLC Residences, we have estates in Pasig and QC called Bridgetown along C5, Sierra Valley in Cainta, the first in the east, and Montclair in Porac, Pampanga. When you buy a condo in an estate, you can expect not just to get your typical neighborhood, but more advanced developments, and that can be a factor on what you're looking for. For RFO, really take the time to visit the property. Inspect the unit, inspect the common areas, inspect the amenities, talk to the property management office. Get to know the community so you can make an informed choice. And then, maybe just to close off, know the purpose of why you're buying real estate. Again, pag medyo magaling yung nagbebenta sa inyo, minsan mako-convince kayo to buy right away and sign. But ask yourself the question, why are you buying property in the first place? Is it a retirement gift for yourself? Now, once you hit retirement age, you'll go back to the Philippines and retire? Is it for your family? Is it for investment purposes na you want to rent it out to people and they'll just pay for rent? So know the purpose of your investment, whether it's for end use, as an investment, it's a gift. It's a great way to guide you on the choice you'll make for your condo. As mentioned, visit the property if it's ready for occupancy. If it's for pre-selling, find out as much as possible. Huwag kayong mahiya magtanong. A lot of times, you get embarrassed to ask basic questions. Magkano ba yung monthly? Paano ko babayaran to? Kailangan ba cheque? Huwag kayong mahiya. Ask the questions so you can learn as much as you can about it. Know the value-added services provided by the developer and the property. It's not just about the condo that you're buying. You're buying the homeowner experience, the unit, the amenities, the retail experience, and value-added services. For RLC Residences, for example, we provide value-added services like My RLC. It's an app dedicated for homeowners so they can conduct their business online, and RingRob, an online concierge for your needs. And know your financing options, right? A lot of times, sellers will just say, eto na yung payment terms mo, meron ka na. Push back, ask what are the other options that I have so you have the best information that you can make. And lastly, know your investment partner. When you buy a condo or any piece of property, you're making a bet on the developer who's building it for you. Deal with reputable developers, brokers, real estate sellers, and know about them. At the risk of bragging a little bit, for RLC Residences, we're a multi-awarded real estate developer with over 30 years of experience. We have been successfully delivering and building beautiful, well-designed condominiums for a long period of time, and we've won a list of awards I'm not even going to mention, right? And the reason why we were awarded all of these is because we tried to put the customer at the center. So try to know your best about the developer who you're buying a condo from, because you're making that big bet, and the developer should be your partner as you invest into your new home. We are guided by the wisdom of our conglomerate, the Gokongwei Group, and by the wisdom of our CEO, Frederick Digo. So that's it for my presentation. But to close off, let me show you a video that talks a little bit more about how in RLC Residences, we try to put the customer at the center.